Well, good evening. This is the Waseca School Board work session for Thursday, March the 6th, 2025. It's 5:30 p.m. and we are in the Central Building second floor conference room. We'd like to welcome all the students who are here tonight. And with that, we'll turn it over to Dr. Hudspeth.
Thank you. Well, we'll start this evening with our staff spotlight. Barry, do you want to come on up and you can either sit over there or over here, wherever you're comfortable with that. So as we think about learning more about our district and so the staff that works with our students and other staff throughout the district, we wanted to have some time to talk with Officer Greta Lucan tonight. She's our school resource officer that works at all of our buildings, officed out of the high school, but supports all of our kids everywhere throughout the district. And she can tell you a little bit about what her role looks like and why it's important for our kids and families. Turn it over to you.
Good evening. I'm Officer Greta Lucan with the Waseca Police Department, School Resource Officer for the Waseca Public Schools. This is my third year as SRO. I started in fall of 2022, and I absolutely love it. It's been a great time. When people think of school resource officer, they may just think of that cop in the school, but there's so much more to the job than that. Obviously, first and foremost, I oversee and maintain the safety and security of all 5 of our public schools. That's my main job. I also provide consultation and guidance upon request for our 3 local private schools. They know they can call me for anything that they need. Happy to work with them. They're all our kids, if they go to public school or a private school. Along with any criminal investigations that may happen at any of the schools. I also assist with child protection matters with our investigators and our local social services. One of the main things that I do is I become a source of peer mediation and conflict resolution for our students. So much of my job is that compared to what we would think of as more traditional police work. The best part of my job is the relationships that I have with the administrations at all the schools. I wouldn't be able to do my job as effectively as I do, and I wouldn't enjoy it as much if I didn't have such great relationships with our staff. We really do have amazing, dedicated people who work for our schools. I'm also one of our DARE instructors. So we teach DARE every year at the Waseca PD to all of our local 5th graders, including Team Academy. It's myself and Detective Nick Wellman. This is my 2nd year as a DARE instructor, and we're elbows deep in it right now. It's a 10-week program, and we're halfway through. We just hit lesson 5 this week. And at the end of it, the accumulation, we have a graduation ceremony for the kids. They all get a certificate. Some kids choose to read an essay talking about just their experiences they took away from DARE. It's been really fun. It's been a great way to connect with the younger kids. My office is at our high school, and that's where most of my job keeps me, just due to the larger population and a lot of the issues that we have with older kids. So it's great to be able to get out into the other buildings, get to see the kids and connect with them. A few kind of noteworthy initiatives that I've taken since being SRO, just let you guys kind of know what I've been doing, some things I've put into place. When I started as school resource officer, I went to a 40-hour class with Minnesota Homeland Security and Emergency Management. It was called Guiding Principle for SRO. At the time, it was an optional course, which I chose to do. It helps officers transition from more of a patrol mindset to a school resource officer mindset, which are 2 completely different things. It was an amazing class. Now it's actually mandated by post board in the state of Minnesota that you take the initial 40-hour class, and then every 3 years you need to take a refresher course. So this year I'll be taking a refresher course through them. One of the services that Homeland Security offers is free school safety assessments. Their whole goal is to make sure that our schools are as safe as can be. So working with the administration at the Waseca High School, I set up a safety and security assessment. We did very well. Obviously, there's always a few things we can brush up on here or there, but in the end, it ended up being fantastic. They came in, identified some things, made some suggestions, so that worked out really well. My 2nd year in, I assisted the assistant principal at the high school with researching and then helping facilitate the purchase and installation of the first ever vape detection system at the Waseca High School. Vaping is becoming an epidemic amongst our preteens and our teenagers. It's something I address a lot in our DARE classes. Having the vape detection system has helped so much, kind of nipping things in the bud right away. dealing with the students, talking through things, offering any type of nicotine cessation programs. There are a few things in place. The vape detection systems has been fantastic. The SRO for the Janesville School District consulted with me, and then she worked with getting theirs last year too. So it's been a great tool and resource. I also collaborated with the administration of both our public and private schools to help facilitate the purchase of advanced medical equipment bags for each of the schools for use in the event of a critical incident in each school. And critical incident could mean anything. It could mean a force of nature, anything that may happen. Now, all of our schools have an advanced medical equipment bag that if they have a school nurse or anybody else who's a trained first responder would be able to offer additional first aid to anybody in the building. Every year in the fall, I complete an assessment of for each school, notifying where all our lock boxes are and the area where in each school where the critical incident bag is located is documented in that. So all our first responders have that information. They know where the bag is located. Our staff does. And then my favorite one, and we were doing that today, is the creation and implementation of a reading program. When I started at the schools, I wanted to be able to find a way to connect with the kids on a more personal level. I didn't want them to see me and always think, who's in trouble? So what's bad is happening? She's here. And so, like I said, so much of my time is spent at the high school just due to the larger population. And I wanted to be able to spend time with our little ones at the other schools. And, a lot of school resources, maybe they play basketball, maybe they play dodgeball. Sports are not my forte. I really don't want to break a leg or strain a muscle, but I do love to read. I've loved to read my whole life. My mom nurtured my love of reading. She bought me every book I ever wanted, and that's something I love to do still as an adult. It's an escape, it's a decompression. So I came up with a way. And I have a little friend that comes with me for this, and she's kind of the star of the show. I have a little 2-year-old miniature poodle named Annika. And I figured, what better way to kind of break the ice and chill with kids and have them want to be around me than to bring a cute dog, right? Bribe them a little bit, and it's worked great. And she is definitely the star of the show everywhere that we go. And every year since then, I work with kind of our counselors and the librarians at the school. We come in, we spend time with every grade level, we read some good books. They like to ask questions. Ani walks around and she makes friends with everybody and they get pets. And it's just really been an awesome way to connect with the kids. I've had a lot of parents come up to me, oh, my kid hasn't stopped talking about you and your dog. And I think that's great. And it's been a way to, they recognize me and they feel more comfortable with me. I think one of my favorite parts in the past couple of years is, in the summertime I work patrol when there's no school, and the amount of kids, it's Officer Greta, and seeing me places and recognizing, it's just been really heartwarming. We were at Hartley last month. We read to every single class at Hartley, and then today we were at Sacred Heart, and we read to all the kids there. And then next week we're gonna be at the Wiz. So I try to make sure, the Waseca Intermediate School. So I try to make sure that we set up and get to every grade group, but that's been my favorite thing that I've done. I'm so happy I've done it, and it's a great time, and I had the support of my administration too for doing that, so it's been wonderful.
Questions?
Do you come into Jay's Nest at all? Into the preschool or not?
I do.
Okay.
I come into preschool, the preschools every fall, and we just kind of do a little talk and introduce ourselves and talk kind of about safety, and the kids get to ask questions, and then we go see my squad car. We haven't been doing that for reading program. It's been suggested, so hopefully I'll be able to make a stop there. It'd be great.
Good.
Yeah.
One thing that I find kind of interesting about your job is you could be at the high school dealing with some seniors, and you could end up over at Hartley dealing with some second graders, like back to back. So I would think that would take kind of some special talent and skills on your part to be able to go from seniors in high school to second graders maybe in a very short period of time. Any thoughts on that, or?
It's been a learning process, and I kind of have it down pat. There's days where I might go to every school twice. I could be at the ALC, I could be at Hartley, I could be at the intermediate school, the high school. It's just kind of a switch of how you deal with them, how you interact with them, how you talk to them on their level in ways that they can understand. I want them to see me as their friend. I want them to see me as somebody who cares about their safety and everyone else's. And one of the most important things for me is I would rather sit down and talk with somebody about why are we making this bad choice and how can we move to making a better choice rather than taking a more punitive approach.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Could you elaborate a little bit on the vaping detection system?
Okay, so all of the student bathrooms in the high school, each stall has a vape detector over it, and that is attached to an app system. So when the vape detection system goes off, myself and the members of administration get a notification on our work phones that comes up. It tells us what bathroom it's coming from and what stall it's coming from, basically in real time. So when we get a notification, we respond to the area, and then it's usually, if it's the boys' bathroom, we'll have male staff go in, female bathroom, myself and other female staff will go in, and then we're able to identify down to the stall where it's coming from. Are we able to catch them every time? Obviously not, but sometimes that would be all we would do during a day if we just, kind of chased every single one, but it's really helped identify kind of who our repeat offenders are and stuff like that, and working with them. It's you could write tickets all day long, but are tickets going to teach somebody something, or maybe are they missing something in their life where we could provide that? But it really is a slick system. It's amazing how detailed it is. It even says the percentage of the nicotine that's released into the air. Yeah, they're really neat.
Okay,
Yep.
very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think with you sharing with the young kids, that's going to provide benefits way down the road that we don't even see yet. I think that's just an awesome way to connect.
Yeah. No, I want them to see me as their friend. I want them to see me as somebody, if something bad happens, come to me. I'm your friend. I'm there to help you. I'm there to protect you. And building those relationships at a young age can really be beneficial as kids get older.
Good. Anything else? Well, thank you, Greta.
As Greta's leaving, I'll just say that all of our staff, administration, and the rest of the staff really appreciate you a lot. And we've been fortunate to have great SROs in my time here in Waseca, and you're continuing in that path quite a way. So thanks for the work you do with our kids.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. I love it. I love being your school resource officer, and I'm happy to be here. And I'm a Waseca resident as well, so I'm investing in my community in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, next we'll move on to, we wanted to have a chance to talk a little bit about what's going on with our food service department, because there's lots happening right now. And Amy McQuarrie is here to share some of the updates going on with that. As we think about our springtime and all of our formal reports we have from our buildings, we wanted to make sure we also take some time to work in what's happening with some of our operational departments. And so Amy was able to make it here tonight, and I'll give her the floor to share a little bit what's going on with food service.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. This is my first update, so if I leave anything out, please ask questions. And I had some facts and figures written down in my office, but it didn't make it on the thing I sent to myself. So if there's anything more I've forgotten, I'll send it out to you guys. So we have our 4 buildings, and all 4 buildings have kitchens there. And so we do produce food in 3 of them. In the central building, we have the kitchen, and we have the food shipped in from both the intermediate school and the junior high school. So we have a variety of programs, which you guys probably know, between preschool and pre-K and the ALC, and then Southwest Metro is all housed in the central building. So it's kind of a very busy place over there. We have 16 regular food service staff, and then we have a few subs that come in for different busy periods throughout the day, plus a variety of subs for when we need coverage, which is happening right now with being ill and that sort of thing too. So most of our staff has been there for a good period of time. I know I just started in this position not this October, but the previous October. And I would not be able to do what I do every day without such an amazing staff. And many of them have been here for so long. They know the history of it and just keep things running very well. So I cannot say more wonderful things about the staff. They do a really good job there. And with the kids too. I would say most of them, if not all of them, really do like what they're doing to be able to work for the school and be a part of with the kids. I know that's my favorite part of my job. For any of you who have gotten to serve at the buildings, is actually getting to be there and serving the kids and kind of seeing what you're doing every single day. So this year, I've been kind of hearing since starting here that the administrative review for food service is a very big deal, and kind of, I would say it was a very big stress point to start with, that it was going to be this year. So it happens every 5 years, and MDE comes out overseeing kind of the USDA regulations and looks at pretty much every facet of the food service department. And one of the days is an on-site review too, which we actually just had on the 25th. So we submit documentation and then they come in and review everything. And I'll say it went wonderfully. We were very pleased. We had very minimal findings. None were critical findings, which is wonderful. Just a few adjustments here and there, which we can definitely handle. So I'm glad to have that done for now. We'll change what we need to change and just keep building on that, and know I'll have more of an expectation in 5 years what needs to be done as well too, what to expect. It was a really good reviewer that we had too. Let's see. So the Minnesota free meals started, as you guys probably know, last year, and we've definitely grown from having paid meals to everybody having free meals. And I would say breakfast is up 25% and lunch is 5 to 10% since then, and it's even higher this year. So if I compare this time last year compared to this time this year, we're up even more than that, which is nice too. So trying to figure out ways to continue growing the food service program as well. That's in our goals for coming up. USDA has some updates to school meals. So they have all the regulations on things like sodium and sugar content, fat content. And they came out with new requirements for sodium and sugar in anything provided for food service. And so a lot of the producers for school foods or the manufacturers have updated the products. So we won't have to search too hard to fit within the guidelines, which is nice. But starting 2027, we'll have to meet the sodium guidelines. And then for sugar, that's already in place too. So if you hear buzz about that, we're ready for it for sure. And then also I don't know if everybody knows the requirements for school meals too. And I know we get questions all the time, why is my student charged for the meal? It should be free. Students have to take certain components with the meals in order for it to be reimbursable meal. And so we have to train our staff to make sure when they're going through that line that they are taking all of the necessary components so that we actually can do the zero charge for them, or else we have to charge them. So I'm going to keep doing messaging for that at the beginning of school so that the parents shouldn't be too surprised, but I never mind phone calls with that either. Let's see. And then also we have contract sites. So we contract with Grace Gardens and then Team Academy and the Head Start program here at the Central Building as well. And so we'll be renewing that, especially Team will be renewing this year. So we'll probably bring that up for you guys at some point this summer too, looking at that. Also, we're hoping to get application for benefits online. That's been kind of my goal since last year, but this year it's looking like we should be able to do that. So we'll still have paper option. We're not going to get rid of paper, but it'll be nice for families who would rather submit it online to be able to do that. So by the beginning of next year, we should have that up and going, at least to start with. And then planning for summer meals. So we do have our summer meal program usually out of the Central Building. And that's the only time it's really a full kitchen where they're preparing food there. So we're starting to plan for that. We'll have meetings from MDE starting this month. And that should start usually second week in June and go throughout the summer too. So you'll see more information about that. I think that's all.
All right. Questions do you have for me?
Yeah.
So how many meals a day do you serve?
Oh, it depends on the building. So I know when I was doing averages per month, that's kind of how I was looking at it. At the high school, it's around 5,000 per month. And like, so per year, if we do lunches per year, last year it was 161,000 lunches for the
That's just the
district.
lunch.
Yep, so- and for
That doesn't
breakfast, it was
include
about
breakfast.
50. It's about 50,000 for breakfast. Yeah.
50,000.
Breakfast is never as high, but yeah, so I was telling the staff at the beginning of the year, if you feel like you're working hard, it's because you are. There's a lot of meals that get put through these buildings, especially on Asian Bar Day at the high school. That is definitely the popular one, and if you ask any of the staff there, trying to get kids to class on time is difficult.
200,000 total then? Or
A little over, yeah.
If so, with free meals,
Yeah.
what if people have the for signing up for the benefits and doing that online?
Yeah.
What would the benefits get them other than
That's
how
a-
does that help them?
That's a really good question. So it's more on our end of things for reimbursement changes, right, from state and federal level. But for them, it would be discounted fees for like activities and other community programs. So I would say a lot of times that's more of a benefit to some families. So we do highly encourage families to still put out the applications unless they're directly certified through the state too, which they get notification on that.
Is that changing with like following MA benefits or something? Is there something?
So direct certification will
Okay.
be how they'll do it going forward. The legislature is currently talking about also still trying to allow some sort of paper or online application because there might be some folks who aren't direct cert that would be eligible. And one of the other pieces, Grant, is that drives our compensatory and Title I revenue, which is a big deal for our district in terms of supporting their overall budget. So just as a history lesson here, the first year, so during the pandemic, so that would have been probably 21, 22, when we did what, free meals, then not free meals, and free meals again. The first year that they were free, so students did not have to fill out the form, and that reduced our free and reduced count to the point where we received 300,000 less dollars in compensatory money the next year. So about 1% of our total budget, right, of that whole process there. We think about it that way for that option. Now, direct certification came back. We got better at getting out and talking to families, and that's come back up to where it is now. And at the end of the day, you also want to make sure you have an accurate picture of your community. It's not so much about the dollars in every case. It's also about we need to know what our community looks like. And so if we don't have accurate information, then we can't sometimes serve students the best way we could. So that impacts that from a significant funding perspective, but also from a resource perspective, just knowing what our community looks like as we tell the story of Waseca for that piece. The other piece that Amy was, as she was mentioning, you have to take certain components of the meal. So I don't know if I don't think they've changed that, but it used to be if you took cold lunch, you got a milk, you had to pay for that. But if you took the whole meal, you got it for free. Is that still the way it is now?
Yeah,
Right? Still
yeah.
the way it is now. So
Yeah.
if you take
There's a lot of things that people are like, why?
Also, a la carte is not free.
Uh-huh.
And so it's the main entree that is free. And so we still collect quite a few from kids, particularly at the high school, who want to have different options with that options too. For
Are
that.
those a la carte items affected by if you've done that form and filled that out or no?
Question, no,
Okay.
nope, everybody pays the same on that.
Okay.
Yep.
What percentage of our students qualify for, used to be free and reduced lunch?
As of October 1 of 2020, of last year, 49.5%-ish, roughly. Just under 50%.
So pretty high.
About half.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So what are your biggest challenges?
Oh, gosh, well, right now it's still like learning all the pieces of the job, right? Like last year it was a steep learning curve, and I remember Eric saying like second year might be harder, right? Yes, because now you know, like it's really easy to be oblivious, right? And this is fun and I'm learning. So I think now it's finding time to actually do more growing of the program, right? Because you get so caught up in the day-to-day stuff, and now that the review is over, I can breathe a little bit and actually start thinking of things like that. So yeah, I mean, I have lots of goals out there. It's picking which ones we can actually focus on. Yeah.
So we just have to ask, what is the students, what's their favorite meal?
Well, at the high school, well, I mean, numbers wise, it's Asian bar. Yeah. And I would say probably similar at intermediate. At the elementary school level, they like their nachos. Yeah. It's interesting to see how it changes just a little bit. It's kind of interesting to go back and look at the days and look at participation too, and see which one popular.
Which ones he participate at every day then?
What's that?
At Hartley, they request more chicken nuggets.
Yeah, you figure out which ones you want to go for, right?
Right, right, exactly. That was what my student advisory committee recommended, more chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
At Hartley.
There's so many different kinds of chicken nuggets too, so we probably could do that all the time.
Okay,
It's fun.
anything else? Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so as we move on, the next topic tonight I want to share with us is just I want to have a little bit more conversation around everyone's favorite topic about school year calendars and how that works. And I want to talk a little bit about 26, 27 and what some of our options look like. And I just want to get a little bit of guidance here from the board in terms of what we want to seriously consider or what we don't as we think about the 2026-27 calendar. So as if you recall, in December or late last fall, we started talking about essentially a 2-year cycle, which we typically adopt calendars in 2-year cycles. So we talked about 25, 26, and we talked about 26, 27. And we settled on where we wanted to land for 25, 26. We felt pretty good about that. Working in a little bit more break time into that particular year, but still getting done when we normally get done, that first week of June there. Well, and then we talked about it at that time that 26, 27 got a little more complicated because of the way things work with the calendar. Amy, do you want to bring up just the spring break option? So because we have a late Labor Day on that particular year, with state statute, still does say that School District of Minnesota have to start after Labor Day. So that would mean a first day of school that week of September 7 sometime. Well, essentially what this model shows us is this is basically 25, 26 translated into 26, 27. Okay, so it's got a spring break, it's got our professional days, that looks fine. Well, if you scroll down and see the end date of when we would get done, that makes everyone feel yucky. Ooh. So what we talked about in our last conversation in December was we really weren't interested in that option. We weren't interested in going to school till June 10th or 11th for so many reasons. One of which, though, is logistically a couple of our middle school trips go that last week of school, and that would be a conflict. So I show that to you because if we were to build a spring break in and not adjust the start time, then that's what we're considering in 26, 27, which doesn't appeal to most folks that I've talked to thus far. So if we go the other direction, then Amy, if you bring the other one up, and we go closer to what we did this school year, which this is the 24-25 school year model, which if you scroll down to find Good Friday and find Easter there, no, this is 26, 27, right? And you see that's a start after Labor Day, starting on the 8th of September, and not really doing any breaks at all, working through the school year. This would actually mirror more what we did last year, with really having just kind of a long year. We have a little bit of a longer break that first week of March, there with a couple days off there around finals with that time, but really not much going on there for that. So if you scroll down to the end, that gets us done on June 4th. So that would be a standard when we've been done, okay, for the most part.
Can you go back up to March? Okay, so first and second is off?
Well, don't pick
No.
apart the colors on this one. I'm just
Okay.
showing as an example.
Okay.
What's going on with that?
That was my question too.
Yeah, this is more of just we can build a model that gets us done by June 4th. This, I guess the message is, we can build a model that gets us done by June 4. There's just not going to be much for breaks.
Okay.
It's just going to be kind of a pretty straight through. I have not counted the exact days on this one yet. It's just
Okay.
kind of those days. Good question. Sorry about that. So those are really what our two options are if we follow what our traditional method has been, which is just kind of decide where we want to start and stop and decide what we want breaks to look like. One thing that I have asked about in just conversation, but we have not seriously considered, is one option is, and it's becoming more and more popular in the state of Minnesota, is we could exercise the rights in the statute to start before Labor Day, if we so choose. Okay, that would be, the requirements are pretty straightforward. You have to have more than $400,000 in projects. That statute's been that way for years, so inflation probably caught us up to 400,000 pretty quick. That used to be a big number, and now it's not so much anymore. And so you could do that, right? You could, we do that every summer with our LTFM planning and total projects, okay? The legislature is also now talking about, Swedzinski's got a bill on the floor right now. I'm not quite sure what his motivation is, but it is that any district can go before Labor Day, 25-26 or 26-27, without getting official permission. Not quite sure what the motivation is there for that or not. We have not really even talked about that with any kind of seriousness here in Waseca since I've been here. If we do decide we want to head that direction, I think there's a lot of community communication and discussion and potentially some feedback we have to gather if we want to think that way. But what I would like to know from the board right now is if that from the board perspective is something you just don't want to explore, we want to stay between Labor Day and where we are, then I will spend more time in the next few weeks trying to hone down this one. And it's going to be a bear of a year as far as break time goes, but we'll be done. We'll get in, we'll get out, we'll be fine. Or if you'd like me to explore the before Labor Day option more, we can start talking about how we want to look at getting some family feedback, talking about getting some community input, what we choose to do from that. But I want to make sure that I'm not walking down a path that we're just not interested in. That's kind of what I'm getting at right now. We don't have any time pressure on this. So our typical process has been in the fall of, so like say fall of 24, we would have approved, in December we did the approval for this year and next. Okay, we just did 1 year this time, we weren't quite sure. We could wait and then this fall do the next 2 years, 26, 27, 27, 28. So this isn't time sensitive as far as a decision, but I also don't want to spend any time working on something that we're not interested in. And there's only so many options. There's only so many ways you can put the days in the year. As I was mentioning to some folks last week in a conversation I had, teacher contract dictates a lot of what we can do in terms of you can't just add more student days here. They have to get their days in per their contract. State statute limits what we have to have for the minimum number of days. We learned it yesterday. We don't want to do any more e-learning days than we possibly have to. We got through it. That was great. We did what we have to do. But you'll notice that next year we built in 2 additional student days. So hopefully we have a normal winter and we don't end up with any e-learning days next year. Just give those kids good old snow days when that happens. And so I guess my question, Dave, if you want to, I don't know if anybody wants to have any conversation about it. Is it worth exploring an earlier start? Or right now, is this probably the option I should try to refine? And it's not a voting night tonight, and we don't have a lot of time sensitivity on this one, but I certainly wanted to get it in front of everybody because it is something that impacts all of you. It's not really a committee work. We talked in the personnel committee last time about kind of talking about personnel, but it kind of fits lots of different places. So I thought this was a good opportunity just to get any kind of feedback or insight the board may have.
Thoughts?
I had a question. So would you say that the earlier start could equate to a spring break? Is that kind of what we'd gain from that? Or would the earlier start push us back to even earlier ending and still no, or is that
Yes.
the one or the other?
The earlier start gives you the flexibility probably to pick which one of those you'd like.
Got it.
Right? It wouldn't mean you would definitely want to do one or the other. I just, from just a personal standpoint, because of some of the construction projects they have going down in Mankato, I just got an email the other day that they're changing next year. Over there, they're starting third week of August, and they'll be done by May 22nd. And that sounds great for that year. Then they have to start late in the fall because it's a construction summer. So there's pros and cons. You wouldn't have to do it that way. I think the end date, the date we get dismissed, is going to be what I've heard seen the most passion about in my time is the earlier you can get out. That seems to be the most popular with a lot of people.
I agree with that. I think starting early, like it sounds good to have those options, but I don't know that our families would appreciate starting early.
I think you get into state fair things too.
That's what I just looked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is we send our kids to things outside the district all year long. These just happen to be 3 days. They happen to miss those 2 days to go to the state fair, but they go to things in December. They go to things in November.
You know, you know, if you're thinking of the vacationers, we're giving them an opportunity for the spring break this next one, but you have a lot of them that do that weekend before.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna take that and cut it short on those, or, you know, I'm a get in, get out type of a guy, and I feel we went to the community on the last go around, and I felt a little bit of both sides there.
Yep.
I don't think, you know, you're gonna get much different feedback.
And nobody's gonna, I mean, people don't like to miss the first 3 days of school. So
Right.
I'm not,
And they're gonna, if a family's gonna take a vacation,
They're gonna
a
take.
lot of times it's not exactly overlaying when we're off
Correct.
anyways.
It's more around their schedule, not everybody else's. Yeah.
Yep.
I also would say that it's one thing to really have a construction project
Right.
that you need some more time to get done. It's another thing to say, this is how I want to maneuver the system so I can make my dismissal date a little different. So there's something to be said for that too. I think our community would probably be far more receptive if we had then we could really have that conversation about why we're doing what we're doing. And we're not there
Yeah.
at that point.
I agree. I don't love the start and I don't love the lack of a spring break, but I can appreciate the start and stop times. So that's my choice out of them, I guess.
As you talk to other superintendents in the area, I mean, we're all kind of somewhat up against the same thing, right?
Yeah.
What are they saying or what are they thinking?
It is becoming regionally more trendy to start before Labor Day.
Do you know what schools are starting before Labor Day?
New Ulm, Albert Lee. I don't know if New Richmond was considering it, but I don't think they're there yet. I hear about Worthington. I hear about the Big South Conference
Okay.
a lot.
What's their legit purpose if it's not construction?
That they want to get done sooner. I don't know there's one.
Yeah.
I do know that only because I have a lot of colleagues down there. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago when Albert Lee had they were doing some significant construction projects, and they've kind of just kept their calendar that way because they appreciate it. That option there too. So it's one of those things where we work the year in and we get going where we need to go.
And it's kind of, I mean, it's just the latest Labor Day there is. So
It is.
It's
We
not,
won't
like,
deal with
get
this
it-
one out of every 7 years, whatever
Right.
it is. I mean, everyone's in the same boat we are. I do know that, last year, again, personal experience. I think the last day of school was the state softball tournament, so that was June 7th or 8th for Mankato. So it's all over the place. There really isn't a best way to do it with everything there too. I do appreciate a little bit of the fact that we're doing kind of an Easter clump this year. Next year, we're going to try the spring break full week kind of model because we have that built in. And then we have to have a year where we just have to kind of crunch it in. And then we kind of see if there's anything that we know there really isn't much of there's not an academic obvious solution that's best, unless you want to go year round. But I know I've heard a lot of advocacy for that. So I think that's where that lands. But I wanted to make sure I was not barking up a tree that really wasn't necessary. Other thoughts?
I think you summed it up well, that I agree that seems like starting before Labor Day is a hard one to swallow.
Well, especially what Theron said, when you look at the results from the last survey and the comments that were posted, it's just, they don't love that. And you'd get used to it and whatever, but I think this is fine too.
So in this instance, you would probably start September 1, right? Is that what you're talking about? Because with a September,
Oh.
if the calendar was moved one day so that September 1 came on Monday, that would be the Labor Day, wouldn't it, or would not?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're just, it's a kind of a fine line here, I guess as long as you're starting in September, I don't think we'd have as much community blowback on it. Doing it 1 year, I don't know. It's maybe if the trend is to start before Labor Day, maybe it's an opportunity to do a trial. This should be a trial balloon thing here for the community to see, is there support for going ahead of that? Now, it used to be that at the state fairgrounds that the 4-H club kids would come in on that Labor Day weekend, if I got my numbers right. Now the 4-H club, all that stuff is done the weekend before that, and Labor Day weekend is the open class shows and stuff. And of course, the livestock shows are kind of the thing of the past, but
I haven't done a lot of studying of them, but the districts that do start before, nobody goes to school on that Friday. That's a 4-day weekend. For pretty much everybody who starts
Okay.
early. So like for this calendar, it would be 4, 5, 6, 7.
Because we have seasonal jobs here in town also that high school kids work at, the pool or Kiesler's or whatnot. And so,
You can affect that.
Yep. Okay.
So are we pretty much saying no to the early start?
I'm not a fan of it.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of families that I know, granted, I don't know everybody, but a lot of families I do know take vacations over Labor Day weekend, and it does interfere with the fair a little bit. You're still bringing livestock back. Even if the shows are early, you're still bringing them back at that time. So, I just find-
Okay, well, that's why I asked. So there you go.
Yep. Yeah.
You notice I didn't bring you a fully sold option because it was like, that's why I bring it up. So what I will do is I will do some more work with this calendar then, and we'll bring it back here in the next couple months, and we'll figure out what we want to do from there.
Well, and like you said, we're not in a hurry to make a decision. So this is, even though we're kind of saying tonight, thumbs down, it is something we can think about.
Let's see what the final of this looks like, and then
Yeah.
see what that goes on from there. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Okay, thank you. So then the last option I wanted to visit about, a topic I want to talk about tonight is our legislative update. So on Monday, we have our joint day at the Capitol with MSBA and MASA, which is the Association of School Administrators. And so we'll be heading up, the legislative committee will be heading up on Monday. Grant and Charlie and Dave and I will head up to the Capitol, and we'll have a chance to visit with some of the committee chairs, both in education, policy, and finance. And then we'll have some time to talk to our local legislators about some of the things that we're thinking about here in Waseca. We just met prior to this meeting and had a conversation as a committee about what some of our topics and focuses will be when we head up that direction. So, Charlie or Grant, do you want to share anything about what we talked about as far as what we're going to focus on Monday? Otherwise, I can too, but you want to.
There's quite a few things that MSBA has on their list of priorities, and we've kind of tried to identify the things that I think maybe are more, that we feel are impactful for our district. Amongst those was some flexibility for long-term facility maintenance and how that can be funded, and potentially giving us locally some more flexibility on how we can do that. There's a bill related to that. We spent some time talking about some of the how unemployment costs and paid leave costs may affect our budget and what that means for us, that we can try to communicate with our representatives.
Yeah, correct. So when we talked about the summer unemployment insurance cost, and when you think about what our increase in unemployment cost has been thus far with that law change, it's about a teacher. When it comes to about $70,000 increase, roughly, it's what we've seen over these first few years in our unemployment cost based on that law. Currently, there's a mechanism to help reimburse districts with that, but that's a fixed amount of money, and that should be out here by the end of this fiscal year. So the goal is, what is going to be the future funding mechanism for that? I think as a committee, and I would say myself as being connected as a superintendent, I don't know that we're going to get a lot of movement on walking back some of these mandates. And so our conversation was more about how do we make them more flexible and more able to be locally used for what we need to do here in Waseca, for example. Similarly, the paid leave, which starts in 2026, which is something that all employers are dealing with, that for us, that cost is going to be based on our payroll tax. Our district alone, it's going to be about a teacher. In terms of about $85,000 a year, roughly. So it'll be added to our bottom line for that. Teachers will also bear that because we split it with them. So they'll get about half. They'll have to pay that much too, of course, divided by 175 of them, right? But that's what they end up paying. So we do know that it's going to be some costs. So we're heading up to the Capitol to have a conversation around just local flexibility around those things. Grant mentioned the LTFM. What that means is currently our long-term facility maintenance plan for projects that are your standard LTFM, which is right. You take the building, you turn it over, you dump it out. Anything that's still there, you can repair with LTFM money. Not build new, but repair. You can bond against that for air quality projects, and what that is you can increase taxes on Board Authority only for air quality projects. That's the only thing you can do it for. Other than that, you would have to either borrow against the LTFM or go out for a vote. What the proposed bill is to add roofs to the list on potential parking lots. To that list, that Board Authority you could bond against your LTFM. It will be a tax increase on Board Authority to be able to do a roof. So if you needed $2 million for a roof, you could do that. That's what that's about. The other thing we've talked about is there has been discussion about LOR increase. Right now, we currently, our local optional revenue is at $724 a pupil. The proposal is to go to $974, so a $250 per pupil increase on our local optional revenue. That will be our levy. That's our local levy, which it says optional for a reason, right? Then we would then potentially have to do the math calculations in the fall if we were to choose to levy for all of that or not as a district. There's lots of things that play into that. State aid that's tied to things like that. But that's something that potentially could get some momentum because, again, it provides local control. To be able to do. We may not choose to exercise the full LOR, but we could decide that locally, that option there. So that was a lot of our theme of our conversation was when it came to there's a bill on high school seat time requirements and revising how much seat time you have to have in high school and allowing districts to be able to set their own parameters around instructional time, giving more flexibility, not changing the graduation requirements that just for high school. I mean, that's not for younger kids. And that was a lot of our discussion was talking about making sure that we keep decisions local. Anything else? What else? No? Yeah. That's part of it. I think right now, based on the budget forecast, revised version was released this morning. I've not seen the full document yet. That was supposed to be released midday. I don't know if you've seen it yet, come out yet or not, but it's not looking good in terms of what they said was the long-term deficit was actually going to be a little bit more than what they thought in December. And so through conversations with our local folks, and I think the reality is the 2.74% formula increase, which is built into current law, is probably going to be what we should expect for new money, if anything. I've not heard many real conversations about walking that back. And for us, that's about $200,000 additional revenue for the next school year. Napkin math on that one, depending on the number of students we have and such for that. But I wouldn't expect a lot of new dollars coming our way, unless they do some of these local optional things that then a board and a district may decide to exercise their rights with some of those things with their community. But then you have to answer to your community, and that's which in one hand is really good because we get the local control. On the other hand, then we have to then make those decisions based on what we think is best for Waseca. I've reiterated this several times, but I'll say it again. We're in comfortable financial state, comparatively speaking. We're not, of course, having excess dollars anywhere, and we're making right-sizing decisions again for next fall because we know we have to make sure we use our money efficiently. But we're not looking at, I think I just saw in the MSBA clippings today, it's about $2 million down the road too, down in Albert Lee, and it was 1.8 in Owatonna, I think, last week. So we're fortunately not there right now. We did ours 2 years ago, so it wasn't like we don't have, and we'll have our turn again. Unfortunately, the way school funding works, so it's every district has to go through their process. But as far as Monday goes, I'm looking forward to getting up there. Tom Sexton and John Jasinski, our local folks who we'll have a chance to meet with next week, are very responsive and they're great to work with, and both really care about Waseca and the community, and I look forward to having a conversation with them. Anything else to add on that?
Is there any talk about like the kitchen funding? Like, that same thing if it's not both, or,
Yeah, last year we got Mandy Fletcher's law. We give her a hard time about that because she's the superintendent in Blue Earth who got you can buy lunch tables out of the out of the kitchen food service fund now because she harassed the right person. So that was good. But no, I've not heard any traction on any of that. We continue to, and I should have mentioned it when Amy was here. We're continuing to combat rising food service fund balances because of the reimbursable meals. You can only buy so many ovens, and you can only your contracts, once they're competitive. And so districts are starting to really build up some fund balances. And so there has been continued requests to add more flexibility to that fund, but I've not heard any traction on it yet this session. Yeah.
So the discussion with LOR, would that that wouldn't affect what the state gives us overall?
Well, so here's the deal. Yeah, unfortunately, the answer is yes, it would, because your levy dollars is a balance between state aid and local levy. So if we chose not to increase our local levy to the maximum, we would likely leave some state money on the table. That's what that would mean. Because they kind of say if you levy this much, then we'll match it at this much. But if you don't levy that full amount, we're only going to give you this much. And so you do leave some money on the table if you don't exercise your maximum local levy.
And to start out with the state, depending on where you are in the state, there's more money at different areas too per pupil, right?
Absolutely.
It's not even across the board
No,
at all.
So the 724, that's the minimum. That's your balance, right? And then above there, districts. Well, 70% of districts, I think 30% of districts right now don't have a voter-approved levy on top of that. And so 70% of the districts also have room on top of that. Some are really big. I think Janesville's is like $1,300 per pupil. Most are around 900 or 1,000, somewhere around there. So their community has chosen to pay an extra $250 per pupil to be able to fund whatever they want to fund, which is much easier to do in a community with more rooftops and more opportunities to disperse the cost, right? Harder to do for a district that doesn't have as much of a tax population, right? A tax base. And so that's what we have to think about. We fortunately have, we've been very intentional with Sarah's work and with Matt's work and with Elizabeth's work even several years ago. We've been very intentional to try to keep it to the point where we don't have to go ask for that voter-approved levy, which means that we may have to then take advantage of something that the statute allows us to do, so then we don't have to go to the voters again for another time. So, but that's something we'll. So Scott, we do have a choice. We could do it now. We could only levy $650 per pupil if we wanted to, but then we'd give up some state money with that.
I was pointing out the same thing, that while we want the local control to choose that, this bill would give us that, but then also tie our hands a little bit that we are giving up something if we choose not to. So it's pros and cons.
And I would say, and this is the legislative gamesmanship, right? Is that if that LOR is raised, it's likely because they're going to say we're not going to give you money somewhere else, so it's to be used for this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And so it's they're going to count it as part of what your overall revenue is. And so if you don't choose to use it, you're going to fall short, unfortunately. Now it's March 6th today, in a session that I would be really surprised if they get done on time in May. So we have a long way to go. But we'll just see. The policy bills have to be through committee by April 4th, and budget bills have to be through the committee by April 11th. So we've got some time yet to see what's actually going to shake it. Now that the forecast is out, I suspect that the governor and leadership from each body will get together and do the budget targets relatively quickly here in the next week or so. And so then, like, education and finance will know I have this much money to work with, whatever that means, and then we'll see where it lands from there. So I'm not hearing any traction about seeing a whole lot of traction of the mandates being rolled back thus far. There's been some specific program bills that have been proposed, like Algebra 2 not being required, removing the ethnic studies requirement, putting a pause on some of the standards that were just approved. Some of those things are there, but those also, we'll see if they get committee hearings. So it's kind of an interesting show to see what's going on up there right now. We haven't had divided government in a couple of years in Minnesota, and usually that's a pretty healthy way to be because it keeps the checks and balances where they need to go. They just need to settle into what that really looks like right now because they're not used to having to play nice together in the last few years. Yeah.
I think between St. Paul and Washington, D.C., we're in for a very interesting times ahead because I don't think anybody really knows where things are going to land.
No. I think the best thing school districts can do, particularly local public schools, is continue to just constantly assess and make sure we're working as efficiently as we can to support our kids and get things going forward. And you all know how much I love the strategic plan. That strategic plan puts us in position to be flexible, and the more local control we can keep and maintain without getting off to one side or the other of the conversation, then we're in good shape as a school district. Just do our job, educate our kids and move forward, and I think that's going to have to be our mantra.
Well, we do the best we can with what we have.
For sure.
Yep.
And we produce pretty great kids right now, so Waseca always has, so that's a good thing.
Anything else? Well, I say our students all went home, so I suppose we can do the same thing.
It was 6:15, I saw it was on the dot.
All right, thanks everybody.